Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this session on growth hacking. So this is part of the Success Mantra series of Nirmaan. Nirmaan is the pre-incubation cell of IIT Madras, where we try to help our students become successful startup owners and help also scale their ventures as they move along. So in this first edition of Success Mantra, we have Dr. Jayaram K. Iyer, who's been a forefront on employing strategies of growth hacking. So, as we all know, ideas are dime a dozen, but execution, where the detail or the devil in the details is in execution. So, today we have Jayaram Iyer, who will be introducing what is the meaning of growth hacking, because we all know hacking, but what is growth hacking is something we are all eager to learn. And post this session, we have selected a few bright Nirmaan startups to be part of a 4-week long program. The first time it is offered by any institute or anywhere else on growth hacking. So I'm very excited to learn from you, sir, and welcome to Nirmaan, and hope we will have a great journey forward. Thank you.
Thank you, and a very good afternoon to all of you, especially Professor Satya here and Madam Nandini, who are organizing this, and all the attendees here. A great afternoon, a great day to start work with. Without much ado, let me start the presentation. Okay, there are no rules in this thing. Whenever you want, please raise your hand. I mean, you know which icons to, which buttons to press for this thing. Please hold up and ask questions. I mean, we can take as many questions as possible. So I'm going to start my presentation. Am I completely, is this slide visible, please, to everyone?
Perfect. Very clear. Yes.
Okay. Let me. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do because it's interfering with this thing. Okay. So essentially, I think the question of growth in all its modern management philosophies have been identified as strategy. So if you have the right strategy, whatever that definition is, I don't think half the people here in the world understood what strategy actually meant. Okay. If you had a strategy, everything gets done. So what people would normally define as strategy is choice of a business model. Right? For example, choice of a consumer segment, choice of a product, choice of an operations technique, choice of the processes. And if these are in place, I think they would say most often this would then be covered as job done. Okay? But that is not so. Most often, the best strategies, well thought out strategies, keeping customer in mind, competition in mind, the legal forces in mind, all those forces, we devise some strategy, we write it down, make some great presentations. But ultimately, they all come down to an ineffective result. In the last 20 years, there is an increasing focus on why great strategies fail. And there is a body of research that is going on, and there are some very excellent outcomes that have come out in this area. Number one, they think is execution is a science by itself. What we mean by execution is the missing link between outcomes on one hand and the strategy is the execution. Now you will say, okay, JK, this is all known. So what does it mean, right? What does execution mean? I think we are here to think in terms of saying, yeah, of course, everyone today is talking about, oh no, where is it stuck? Yeah. Growth and progress is in everyone's mind. Okay? And we all know, as I said, execution is the key to it, right? So what does it mean when it comes to, for example, a startup at seed stage? Okay, you could have several progress requirements or growth requirements. It could be something to do with prototype development and validation. It could be with bootstrapping, finding money. Okay, it could be with developing a business model, right? How do I even develop a business model? At an early stage is building a minimum viable product. Okay, what is the minimum viable product that customers would want to buy? Right? Testing the business model, right? Finding angel funding. Then at growth stage, your areas of focus could be marketing, sales, right? Or it could be distribution, production, operations, VC funding, finding VC funds. At all the stages of startup, you would have some of the other goals that are predominating, and you would have thought through some ways of getting all these things done. Now, what usually happens, and I've seen in startups, especially in startups, even at the early growth stage and growth stage companies, is that they are surrounded with constraints. And what are those constraints? Constraints of time, constraints of money, constraints on efforts, right? Or constraints or lack of team members, sometimes capacity constraints, asset constraints. I mean, you could have several constraints working on at the same time. Startups usually don't have the luxury of money or team members or assets. Everything is being ground up built. So I have noticed the common refrain amongst young startups whom I meet dime a dozen is that we don't have time. Of course, you don't have time. It's not that any other organization, a CEO or a COO or any of the other employees have time. That's not true. Time is, in fact, the most rare thing around in this world, at least for busy people. I mean, for others, I think we have a lot of time. Money is even bigger constraint across the business spectrum, but more so for a startup. And team members. You don't have team. There are 2 people, 3 people, team, each one trying to do everything, right? And that could be sometimes capacity constraints. That means capacity in the sense, even your basic capability to do certain things may not be available. For example, some of the startups may not know how to develop a product. Some of them may not know how to market a product. Some of them may not know how to sell a product. So there are constraints in capacity, constraints in time, money, everything. And in this milieu, in this idea of constraints, there is also the lack of clarity of what one needs to do, right? I mean, this is the real scenario across most startups that I've seen. Startups meaning even larger organizations have this problem. How do some startups go on to deliver billion-dollar innovations? And how do some startups fail? In fact, the truth is 99 out of 100 startups fail even if they are equipped with money. Okay, angel money or more than angel money, let's say early stage funds and so on and so forth. Several of them fail, and they fail because of lack of execution excellence. And this is the fundamental thing which we are trying to think of, how to capture execution as a science. How do we bring thinking about execution as a particular science, right? It is actually not very difficult. It just requires very, very commonsensical approach to execution. And what I'm going to probably tell you going to be very, very complex. And many times I would always, after I finished, people will come back and tell me like the proverbial Sherlock Holmes and Watson, like elementary my dear Watson. And that is how it all looks. And after that, but the point is, what we are trying to grapple with, even though is a very commonsensical approach, is the most uncommon thing I found in startup. Most startups do not practice very commonsensical approach to execution or execution excellence. Let us see how. And to understand this, I would now borrow from the concepts of a regression equation. I'm sure most of you belonging to IIT would what a simple regression equation looks like. And I'm going to put that on a panel, and I'm going to request people to raise your hands and explain what this regression means. That's all. I'm going to just put up an equation. People can raise their hands and start answering what this regression actually means. Right here. What does this regression equation mean to you? Hello? Am I audible? You could actually, instead of reading, you could hold your this thing and start speaking. Is speaking allowed? I'm just wanting to know. Yeah.
I think they have responded in the chat window, sir.
Okay, let me open the chat.
Because they are not able to unmute.
Okay. Let me. Okay, I'm unable to quickly navigate to this thing without removing my. Wow, unable to lock the.
Can I read out the response for you?
Yeah, some of the response, because I'm unable to open the.
No problem.
Yeah.
So one student has responded saying that fitting input parameters to show linearity with output.
Okay, good, excellent. Excellent. Okay. Any other comment?
No, only one so far.
Okay. So, right. In fact, what it means, as somebody said, is showing input parameters to a given output. Very clear. Okay. And in right? So, for example, I'm just giving you a typical business equation, right? So you could have a target variable called sales, right? Which is a matter of your interest. It could be sales moving over a month, or sales moving over a year, or sales moving over a week. It doesn't matter. Sales as Y. Any change in Y is explained by the input parameters x1, x2, x3, x4, and millions of infinite x's. If I had infinite knowledge, that is what the last parameter tells me, I can actually predict what is going to happen with Y with almost 100% accuracy. This is what it means. But that's a make-believe world. It never happens. Okay. So we have some elements that we think we are in control. We put them into the box. It could be, in this case, media spend, okay, or feet on street, or number of stores, or number of products, and so on. So, for example, what does this mean in this regression equation context? What it means is, if I increase media spend, then Y sales increases. Very common sense, right? If I increase number of people on the street, right, now obviously Y would go up. If I increase number of stores, right, for a given brand, sales would go up. If I increase the width of the products that I carry, sales would grow up. So the plus sign and the relationship, this plus here, and the Y being related to Y tells you how the relationship moves, right? So We call most of these variables, of course, as input variable. And then there is a y, which is your output variable. And we could call them as levers and target. Right? So you choose a target and you choose a lever. Okay. And you bring them all together and find out what impacts what. In this case, I think the most important knowledge is not this. Of course, all of us, most of us know this, that the way X and Y's are related tells you how I can influence Y. So for example, if your boss comes up and says, hey, you know what, I need 100% growth this year. You say, okay, give me X amount of additional media spend or X amount of additional feet on street or Y amount of, X amount of number of stores. And then voila, I will show you sales, right? That is how people will react to this. But let's look at one more solved equation thing. And here is where a lot of information is hidden, right? So when I have solved this equation where y is equal to alpha plus 2x1 plus 1x2 plus 10x3 plus 3x4. This tells you a sort of different story. And I'm sure most of you know that the beta coefficient here, 10, 2, 1, 3, tells you in some sense what is the relative power of impact of these variables. But clearly, in this make-believe example, we know that putting all your efforts into opening number of stores, okay, is going to give you manifold impact on Y as opposed to spending money on media or feet on street or number of products. Right? It's a very, very commonsensical thing. And this is exactly what we bring to the execution excellence philosophy. When your money, time, efforts are constrained, you don't have unlimited budgets or unlimited time or unlimited efforts or unlimited capacity, then the one thing that is going to deliver phenomenal results in sales is by focusing just on opening number of stores, right? So the ability to find out, first of all, what is that why that you need to chase within your startup ecosystem? It could be sales, it could be product development, it could be marketing, it could be getting something done. Then sitting there thinking what influences the outcomes of your goals the maximum, right? In this case, for example, opening number of stores and relentlessly setting up action programs to deliver that alone, right, is going to give you phenomenal fill-up results. If you had too many whys in your company, that is a lot of things to chase on, and too little ideas on what significantly impacts any of your whys, you will be one of the 99 out of 100 that will fail. I'm again repeating. If you have too many whys and you did not know for any of those whys what are the most influential, impactful levers, you will be one amongst the 99 that is going to fail. Even in startups, even in seed stage startups or early startup or growth stage startups, it is extremely important as founders and owners to pick the battles that you want to fight that year. That means limiting the number of whys. Okay, that means you're not going to chase everything under the sun, even though okay, it looks to be the most important thing to be done. Chase fewer whys. Number two, for each of the whys, find out what are all the levers of influences. Number three, find out what are the most impactful influencers. This is the body of science. This is the body of science that I would want to, elaborate as a concept of execution excellence. And this is what we will be trying to do in the workshop that's coming up in the next 4 sessions, where the first session possibly will tell you how to choose your whys. Second session will possibly tell you how to, pick up the kind of X's that are likely to impact those whys. Why? and how to determine the impact of each of those variables, right? So how do we do this as a science and then building action programs, right? So that is the way one has this workshop is delineated. As I said, right, this is extremely simple. Execution excellence is nothing else but regression equation modeling, choosing the right targets, uncovering several levers, discovering the impactful levers. This is what is at the crux of our workshop, right? How do we do this? Okay, I'm not going to walk you through data mining exercises, even though we are a data science company. I'm not here to tell you regression equation modeling. That's not my goal. I'm just picking up the science of regression and applying it for execution excellence. And this can be done in everyday life too, even right now, right? That is exactly what we're trying to pitch here. And I will at least read out 3 cases out of the several that I have personally got through. I will be able to tell you how this is actually done. Any questions until now? You can speak up, because I'm not able to read the.
Yeah. So if there are any questions, please just raise your hand. I will unmute you so that you can ask the question.
Okay. Good. Right. So let me progress with the yes. Does anyone have an issue with voice? I think yes. Yes, sir. I think people have issues with voice and this thing. Can you fix it, Professor?
I think it's coming from your end, JK. Is there some issue with the microphone, I believe? Because I'm able to hear it well, and some of them are hearing it well. Either it's coming from the Bluetooth headset they are using or the internet from your end. I guess it's mostly the Bluetooth headset.
Now, are we talking about people hearing me or people not able to talk?
It's about people hearing you. Not able to talk is because most of them are here as attendees. So I will have to unmute them as they raise their hand. So that I will manage as I moderate the session. But not able to hear you is, I think, with the problem they have with their headset.
Okay, brilliant. Not a problem. Okay, let me proceed with the lecture. Okay, and people can raise questions in comments. And Professor, please don't feel shy to.
Sure. No problem. I will stop you and read out if there are any questions.
Yeah, please do. Thank you. So let me proceed and start giving you some examples, right? Right. So I'll give you 3 big examples of this idea. Okay. So I will start with the last one, which is called the Phipps Plaza Mall example. Right? Now, in this case, the story goes like this. There was this retail store, which is a single retail store, a shoe store actually, which was suddenly seeing for 3 quarters degrowth in sales. That means it was losing sales. So the question was, immediately the owner of the stores immediately went up and asked people, consultants and specialists and so on and so forth, hey, what should we do? We are a small store. We are seeing degrowth in sales. What should we do? There are 2 large stores that have opened nearby. It appears people are wanting to go and buy there. What do you suggest? So as usual, most consultants will always take the easy way out. And some of them said, you also become big, you open new stores, you advertise more, you employ more salespeople, you drop prices, you increase the width of the holding of the stock. We are sure you will grow. But then remember, all these things cost money. If all these problems could be solved by throwing money at the problem, then actually execution is not even required. People just need money. And I know a lot of you are thinking, The very well-funded billion-dollar unicorns are just doing that, right? I mean, having a lot of money and throwing good money at bad results. But actually, that is not what was motivating our owner here to do. And he got one specialist who was looking at a lot of these ideas inside the stores and checking out data. Okay? So he was checking out a lot of data as to what is related to sales. Is there any special focus on some items going faster, some things lagging? Is there a store layout problem or whatever? I mean, he looked at everything. He was also looking at performance parameters. And he suddenly found out that there was this one woman, okay, in the store who did phenomenal sales. She was doing sales way above the average of the others, almost 10 times, 15 times more sales than the others. So he went and asked her, right, can you please tell what you do? How do you sell so many? So for that, she answers, okay, you know what? I'm very customer friendly. I respect all customers. And, things, whenever customers comes, I, give special attention. I think that is what is the secret of my success. The problem with this answer is this problem cannot be actioned. You can tell other salespeople also to be more customer friendly, more listening to what they want and all that thing, but it's not actually actionable. So what they did was they put up a camera and started monitoring what she was doing. They found out after about 3 weeks of monitoring why she sold much better than anybody else. That was because she was the only saleswoman who would make customers try more than 3 shoes. She had the number of customers who tried more than 3 shoes, right? Or 3, whatever products were, it could be a chappal or anything. She was the only one who did that, okay? And that means that they figured out that once people try 3 shoes, the probability that they would buy goes up phenomenally. Now, armed with this idea, all that the store owner did was he trained 50 of the other employees, told them this, made them realize the importance of making people try 3 shoes minimum, right? And then what he did was he extracted goals on number of customers that will be served minimum 3 shoes each week, right? So all these 50 salespeople took up goals week on week for the next 3 months or several weeks ahead. Week on week, how much increase they will bring in number of customers they serve who would have at least 3 shoe tries minimum. So let us say each salesperson handles about 50 visitors in a week. Example, let us say in week 0, there was just 0 customers who tried 3 shoes, right? So the goal is to take that number week on week, okay, to a certain number. So first week could be minimum 5, second week could be 10, third week could be 15, fourth week could be 20. That is a progression per employee, salesperson, a progression of number of customers that would be covered under the single goal, the input goal called number of customers with minimum 3 shoes tried. Right? Now, you will be amazed. The moment salespeople understood what is the secret of sales, right? I mean, they all need just to understand that. They all took care of the sales numbers themselves. They made sure week on week, they somehow made more and more customers try 3 shoes, right? And the sales skyrocketed. At the end of one quarter, they had lost all the sales that they had lost in the 3 quarters. And then the next 3 quarters, they jumped up to be back to one of the best shoe stores in the place. Remember, the most important aspect of this case is that there was no single extra dollar invested in advertising or new store opening. or hiring new salespeople, or price drops, or product with changes, and so on and so forth. Now, the beauty of understanding execution excellence lies in this, right? The team was able to fundamentally simply find out what is that one or two action points measured clearly that led to the increase in the target variables outcome. Whether it was sales or whether you may say this is sales, so it is easy. That's why I picked up sales. I will give you two more examples which are not sales related. This can be applied in product development. It can be developed. It can be used for anything. Any of these issues you can use it, right? This idea of converting, selecting wise cleverly, determining impactful levers, putting up an action program over the next few weeks, chasing them relentlessly, okay, is the art of execution excellence. So in this case, remember, sales was the goal. The impactful lever was number of customers who were shown at least 4 pairs of shoes, or 3 or 4 pairs of shoes. And then the second was to build the action program from each employee week on week, how much they will take, and then relentlessly reviewing week on week what happened on those goals. That is example one. I'll give you another example. I was chief strategy officer at matrimony.com, and we were finding one very, very funny thing. I mean, I'm just going to give you a very small focused example to just help you understand the concept. Now, 10 years ago, assisted matrimony service was launched. And assisted matrimony service is the opposite of the online Bharat matrimony. While online Bharat matrimony is do it yourself. You register the profile, you search for the opposite profiles, you make the effort to contact, you make the effort to consummate it into a marriage, right? So that is the whole thing, which is online. Assisted was everything offline. So in the previous version, the online version, there were several pain points. Number one was there were far too many profiles for people to hunt, okay, search. It was taking time, it was cumbersome, the site itself was new, and people found it difficult to navigate, and so on and so forth. A lot of parents didn't know how to use websites, right, to make sure that this thing worked. Assisted matrimony was the right opposite. You put a relationship manager for a customer, and it was priced almost 8 to 9 times higher than the do-it-yourself online version. The assisted matrimony RM would actually then understand the customer profile. They would also spruce it up. They will fill it up better. They will use languages and text that they knew would work. And second, they will, understand what kind of match they want, which is called the partner preference filling. And then they will hunt. The RMs themselves will hunt for profiles that match the given preference, right? And then they will establish a contact, whether they want to meet him, meet your customer or not, and fix up a meeting. Now, the funny thing about this entire assisted matchmaking platform was that the success rates of assisted matrimony and the online version, do-it-yourself version, did not differ significantly. Okay? In fact, this was one big problem for us. Internally, we were saying, why are our employees not able to turn out more success managers than the do-it-yourself version? Because the RMs know the product, they know how to search, they know how to zero in on profiles that match our customers' preferences. You are fixing a meeting, yet the marriage rates are the same. The success rates in both are the same. This got us to thinking, and we were finding extremely difficult to digest the fact that this was really happening. So we were tasked with understanding how to improve the success rates of assisted matrimony marriage. So what we did at that point in time was managed to dig deep into the data, into the service spectrum. Again, we found out that some RMs were doing phenomenally more in success rates than others. We casually started investigating, talking, asking them, and so on and so forth. what we found with couple of RMs, relationship RMs who did phenomenally well in success stories and renewals was this. That while they would look at the profiles in the system that matched our customers' preferences, they would do one step more. What they did was, they also checked whether the target profile requirements matched our customer. That means it's a bidirectional match. It's not a unidirectional match, bidirectional. For example, let us say our customer's requirement is 23-year-old girl with BTech degree, example. Okay. And our man is a doctor, example. They saw this profile, even though it is 23-year-old BTech, does she want a doctor or not? That was the question that was asked. Right? The moment that question was asked, that means it's a bidirectional match. The moment bidirectional matches happened, the success rates improved phenomenally. So therefore, the question to increase success rates of marriage was the target variable. The most impactful variable, the new variable was how many bidirectionally matched profiles were sent to our customers. That became the variable. Earlier, people were targeted to send about 10 profiles each week, okay, or each month. I don't remember clearly what that is. Each month, 10 matched profiles were sent matched to your preferences, right? Not bidirectionally. And later on, this new variable was introduced. How many bidirectionally matched profiles were sent to the customer? So first week targets were 2 per customer. Then next week it was 3, 4, 5, 6, and then later on to a maximum of about 8 bidirectionally matched profiles needed to be sent per week or per month. Instantaneously, success rates jumped. Instantaneously, right? Immediately, success rates jumped. There was so happy. The RMs were happy, most importantly, doing their jobs because they saw success with their customers. Renewals improved phenomenally. I think then assisted matrimony started doing much, much better than earlier expected. And even today, it is one of those flagship products. So again, recall in both the cases, the apparent variable of interest in the first case of Phipps Plaza Mall was the number of customers who tried minimum 4 shoes. This was not a variable that this was not a variable that was apparent, right? It had to be dug out through a lot of thought process, observation, introspection, and so on. This is what I call as somewhat dark data. This data is available in the system, but we are ignoring to understand it. And we still proceed with thinking that you keep doing what you are doing, and if you did more of that, you will get your results. That's not true. Same case, for example, in assisted matrimony, which is the second variable of our interest. We saw, for example, in this case, how one particular item called bidirectionally matched profiles improved success stories phenomenally. Another example of SP Robotic Works. It is a startup. It is in its Series A B funding right now. It's one of the most very well-known edtech companies from south of India. Probably it will turn out to be a unicorn soon. I had the privilege of helping them grow. Okay, and one of the requirement was it's an edtech company which is assisted online and an online model of edtech. They give robotic classes through the picture that you see is called a maker lab, which is run by a franchisee, right? And these franchisees 2 years ago was 0 in number, probably under a few counts. They knew growth meant appointing more and more maker labs. So there was a robust franchisee acquisition system in place, right? So they had a beautiful digital marketing campaign run, okay, to acquire leads. Okay, there was a team that would call these leads with expression of interest. They would send documents, the documents about what a maker lab is, commercial proposals, and all those things. And the sales team would drive for sales. For a long time, sales was very sluggish. Sales wasn't growing at the pace that they wanted. Of course, again, a lot of depth of review and thought processes, they understood one very, very important thing. That when a lead or a prospective franchisee visits an existing open store, right, that person took a franchise. That means he subscribed to that franchise immediately. So the entire organization's focus now went to chasing this one variable. How many leads have visited an existing maker lab? Just to look around, just to ask questions, just to think, right? Now, the moment this number was picked up as an impactful lever on the outcome variable called number of stores opened, it immediately sprung to action. People started motivating leads to visit stores, right? Visit existing maker labs. And sales grew from 0 to 100 in a matter of just 8 months, right? It is an unimaginably scorching pace of growth of number of franchisees never known. And it was done by a very small team of just 6 salespeople with no additional investment in leads or any other infrastructure. That's the most important point. In all these cases, if you see, there is no extra outlay of any funds. No increase in advertisement, no increase in budgets, no increase in cash outlay, no increase in team, no different technology, and yeah, and so on and so forth. Okay, Rahul, I think, is one of the members who just commented saying that it was done because of that. Yes, he was also part of the team then who made that possible, and one of the star performers. Rahul Mathur, is that Rahul? There's only one Rahul I'm seeing. Is that Rahul Mathur?
Yeah, it is Rahul Mathur, who has just said all thanks to you, sir.
Yeah. So he was part of that successful team who drove the sales too. The moment that item was identified, right, it was the focus of the organization was to get that one variable through, right? How many things, and there were a lot of programs that came through, right? How to make existing some of the people to follow up, call, and so on and so forth, right? So let me this thing. So how do we determine this? After determining your wildly important goals, focus a lot on how it is influenced the chain of lead and lag variables, right? The lead being sales in the case of Phipps Plaza Mall, which is a shoe store, being success stories in the case of assisted matrimony. It is the number of franchisees appointed in the case of SP Robotic Works. The lag variables in the case of Phipps was the number of customers who tried minimum 4 pairs of shoes each visit, a number of bidirectional matches sent to the customers, and in the case of SP Robotic Works, the number of prospective franchisees who visited an existing maker lab. So these were the kind of action programs that we would actually see when it comes to execution. And let me then go to the next leg of execution excellence, which is creating action programs. Now, action changes things. Nothing else does. The thinking, that is why I say, that is why when we see strategies and so many things, strategies are only things on paper. It needs to be translated into actual action. Now, I will just give you this for our cases, right? In SP Robotic Works, why was number of appointed franchisees? The influential X factor, okay, was the number of site visits by the leads. Action programs, forward and increasing goals of weekly targets on influential impact. That means each of the salesperson took up, for example, how many franchisees, prospects will they get to come and visit a maker lab, right? That was a goal. So increasing that number of goals means there was motivate. For example, number of call-out leads from nodal maker labs, number of commercial proposals sent, all those things were adding to the pot boiler called targeting sales. In the case of assisted matrimony, I'm again this thing, number of successful marriages, number of bidirectional marriages, forward and increasing goals of weekly targets, implementing, for example, one MIMA called Matrimony's Intelligent Matchmaking Algorithm, which made these discovery of bidirectional matches possible. a number of customers with more than 5. I mean, those are other sub goals that were picked up for this thing. Similarly, in the shoe store, I've explained to you what this means. Right. Now, this is the final set of slide. What does this do is every week, the moment you have uncovered your impactful lever, right, and people have taken up goals, the moment people have taken up goals, each week is just review. Where are we? What should we do? Okay, you committed this week, 10 customers would be sent with bidirectional matches. You sent 7. What happened? What should we do to make it to 10? Next week, you're promised 12. Are we clear that we need to deliver 12? Right. So the point is about getting this internally, the numbered objectives chased, right? What are the action plans? Why did we not achieve? What went wrong? What should we do now this week to change the outcomes and move this? Now, what happens if we do this week on week, right? With your goals versus your achievement, goals versus your achievement. What action programs we do? That's what we call as the beat the goat syndrome. Beating the goat means actually the goat is a better climber of mountain than a human being. So the euphemism for a good excellence over a week is how do you beat the goat? Right? The moment you have great execution mechanisms in place, week on week action programs and reviews would actually help you set and achieve the goals, whatever goals they are. Let me recap what I told you, okay, which is what I have in mind. Lastly, how to determine the most important goals, the lag variable, right? This will be the part of your workshop session 1, right? What should we do? Second, how do we determine the most impactful influencers, the lead variables, right? What is going to come? What is going to influence? How do you determine them? Right? And then how to create action programs around the above and how to build cadence, right? Each week without letting up. How do we do this? In all my life, if at all I can tell you the success story of several, right from Siemens and also in between with Liba and then with matrimony.com or even the startups that I am associated with, one thing that can be associated very strongly with success in all these organizations is our weekly review programs, right? Once the goals are set, the lead and lag variables are determined, the ability to constantly keep the accelerator on the growth of the input variables, that is growth on the lead variables, automatically results in the growth of the lag variables. You don't have to bother about the lag variables or your target goals once you have a control on your input variables. That is your this thing. So the entire workshop over the 4 sessions will actually just determine in a manner how to do this. As startups, you can come up with any problem of yours. And my endeavor at the end of the 4 weeks is to equip you adequately with how to determine the first, the most important goals in your organization. Then second would be to actually come back and say how to determine the lead variables, how to develop the action program. And this will be done on a workshop basis. As you see, the slides are less. It's a very, very small set of ideas. The trick is in the workshop practice, right? How do you religiously practice it? What are the tools and other things, right? That is how you do this. And at the end of the 4 weeks, I am 100% sure that you will be equipped to be 1 out of the 100 that succeeds. I am reasonably certain that you will do, because fortunately, or with all the God's grace, the startups that I have been associated with, and especially with the companies that I have associated with, I have practiced this and I've seen these succeed almost every time. Probably 1 or 2 would have gone wrong because we got the lead and the lag variables wrong. Okay, it is more about our conceptual understanding than the technique itself. A technique has got a lot of promise. And I'm sure at the end of this workshop, you will be armed with how to do it, the execution secret or the growth hacking mantra. Thank you very much. There are next, I think, another 10 minutes. We can take questions.
Thank you, Jayaram. I think you really made it very understandable for engineers. You have given an algorithm for success. I think most of them would like it. So let me open it up for the questions from the audience. If you have any questions, please put up your hand. I will unmute you. Or you can type it out in the chat window and I can read it out. So while we wait for questions from the audience, Jayaram, I have a question on in the weekly cadence and review. Is there a point where you also review your lead and lag variables, and how often do you correct it? Or the flip side question is, how much time does it really take for you to identify lead and lag variables? That is question number one. Question number two is, at what stage of a startup should they be thinking of lead and lag variables? So many of our startups are somebody who is about to start talking to customers who are yet a very early stage. So what would be the stage at which this discussion about lead and lag variables be useful?
Yeah. So very valid questions. Let me start with the first one. How do you often change your lead and lag variables? Is a question. Intertwined is a question. How do you determine your lead and lag variables? Now, I do not advise people to keep changing lead and lag variables because it just belies total lack of understanding of what you need to do. I mean, your confusion is actually on the paper. Right? It's not a good idea to do that. It is extremely important to select the right lead and lag variables in the beginning. You may spend 2 weeks, 3 weeks determining that for your year or next 6 months if you want. If you're a fast-changing, fast startup, at least for next 6 months, you should have your lead and lag variables in place. Now, let me also tell you, Professor Satya, most people know what are the most important goals of your startup. They know it. But sometimes what happens is, just because it takes a lot of effort to go and do it there, they fill up putting efforts and not so meaningful. That is actually the bane of several startups I've seen. It is not that startups don't know what to do, but they don't spend enough energy on it. They know, for example, getting a prototype out in 4 months is extremely important, or a minimum viable product is the goal for the next 6 months. But they're chasing around, wasting their time meeting people and asking them for connects and introduce me to that person, this person. It's not required. Just a lot of efforts get filled through the day while most important goals are being ignored because they're complex to do, right? Or sometimes the capacity is not there. So when you know what is to be done, committing yourself to doing it is the first step towards success. That's the most important thing. And then choose well, do not change it. Because if you keep changing lead and lag variables, okay, at least the target variables or the lag variables, it is just the organization is going to be so confused as to what is this, what are we supposed to do, right? What am I supposed to do here? And second point is, there may be possible that some of your lead variables adjust themselves over a period of time. That means what is today influencing your lag variable phenomenally may turn out to be a bad choice, or it was not a single choice was not good. Another variable also impacts as much as the other variable. Those adjustments are possible. But then I would always come back and say, take your time in planning, plan well in the first 2-3 weeks of your next 6 months. Decide what your lead and lag variables are, determine how you're going to do it, create our action programs, and thump that concept dry for next 6 months. And definitely you'll see results.
Sure, thank you very much. Anyone else would like to pitch in with a question before I go on with my second question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, Dr. JK.
Hi, Vishy.
Hi. Fascinating, very interesting. I have a question. Is this something can this be applied to a B2B situation as well?
Yeah.
Or,
Yes.
or is it primarily the B2C kind of selling?
No, it can be applied in a B2B scenario also. For example, a deep quantity artificial intelligence labs, we applied it over two very important goals of our company. One was product development of SaaS product, and we also applied it to our sales team, right? So both were parallelly running through different teams though. At product development, for example, Vishy, we wanted to develop using computer vision a handwriting recognition algorithm for reading an application form of a credit card. Okay, this was the goal, right? How to get this done, right? This was the goal. And we wanted a minimum viable product out in 3 months. Now, we looked at this goal, we started looking at what will deliver us the results. Incidentally, one of the most important point we noted was, I'm just wanting to cut the chase and tell you what are the most important issues here. The team discussion among two very differently abled groups, the weekly sessions, right? One was able to do math, the other was able to do annotation. The ability to talk together on those things made a lot of difference on how quickly the product developed. The moment we identified that, our job was to bring these two teams together to discuss at least one each week, and the product came out on time. Likewise, for example, in B2B, the question was how to get your first sales. Again, similar concepts were done. Incidentally, the target variable for us was how many banks tried our product. Okay, it was not about how many meetings we took, who we saw, whose connect we had, which CEO we had in our hands, which VP finance we had in our. Nothing mattered. All that mattered was how many banks had tried our products. So we would somehow make sure they took a POC, whether it was a paid free POC, we didn't bother. Get inside the bank with a POC. The moment POC happened, the results led to success of a contract. I think it is applied equally in all scenarios, whether B2B, B2C, e-com, logistics, any environment of execution, this works.
But I guess one needs to try and understand the buying decision-making process, right? I think
Exactly. So I think the art is in that thinking in that first 2 weeks. What is the most important goal that we need to chase, and what leads to that chase? For example, in our case, it was having at least 3 POC customers by the end of the thing. That we changed it from sales to POC customers. We knew what led to that. So we relentlessly worked hard to get that. And we got it. The point I'm trying to say is whether it was here in this situation or in matrimony.com or in SV Robotic, I think results were achieved. We may qualify those results later on. We may even question whether those were the right kind to chase on or whatever. Those are different. The point was success was there the moment an execution machinery was in place.
Thanks. Yeah.
So we have a question from the audience. In a startup, is it advisable to push prototypes being done and completed before establishing marketability?
No, that is not true. In fact, the prototype design itself should start from a customer need. If there is no clarity on what customer need, number one, is it being served? Is the customer need being sufficiently large? Number three, are you going to get the solution in the most cost-effective way, right? These are the 3 things that determine your development of prototype in the first place. If these 3 questions are not answered in the first place, going for a prototype is simply not done, right? It is so egotistical to, in some sense, to believe that your tool is so beautiful that it is going to enamor everyone, that's going to come across. No, that's not true. That's not true. So prototype itself is a function of three things. Again, repeat, a real customer need that is being served. Number two, the quantum of customers that who want that need to be satisfied. And number three, is your prototype or whatever is going to be done in the most cost-effective way. These three answers go into development of your prototype.
Thank you, JK. So we have time for one more question before we wrap up. All right. So in the interest of time, I think we have hit already 1:03. So I would like to thank you, JK, very much for this very insightful session. I think the lessons that you have mentioned here, as you rightly said, does not apply just only to one function. I think it applies across board in a startup, and I can also see parallels in running a research lab where it really applies across board for even research students. So it is useful enough that we can learn a lot from it. So I really look forward to the 4 weeks session that you would have, and we would be having 8 teams participating as panelists along with you to do the workshop, and we would be also enabling audiences. So there is always learning by absorbing on osmosis, however, being around.
Exactly.
So I think that is one of the objectives we have, and I really look forward to having you on board. And thank you very much for your time today. And
thank you.